Hello, and welcome to the podcast where good trivia gets rewarded and bad lies are punished. This is What's the Fact?
Yes, welcome to the show. I'm Ryan Whittle. This is Warren Robertson, and we are delighted to have you join us. And it is a very nice one. We're going a little bit back in time. You know, they don't make movies like they did in the past, you know. And songs neither. They don't make songs. They don't do nothing like they did in the past.
Yeah, you can tell this is, we're talking about old movies because we're calling it cinema.
Ah, yes.
Classic cinema. Classic cinema.
No,
But
I'm not one of those oaks. I won't, like, as much as I love 80s music, I'll never be that about music or movies because eras are eras, and I won't say they make better movies in the past than they do now. No, I won't say that.
But the thing is, they actually make worse ones, right? So, no, genuinely. So there's a theory, right, that like
now in the modern.
No, so there's a theory that this is what happens, right? And it happens with everything. Everything improves as time passes.
Yes.
So if you think about comedy, how basic your sitcom idea was.
Yes.
I Love Lucy was very simple, very basic. It's not funny anymore because the jokes are very set up, very telegraphed, and you can see the punchline.
Yes.
Then along comes Friends, and Friends is about a very set kind of group of characters in a very specific scenario, and it does specific things in its era that people love.
Yes.
And then come the things that develop off of Friends and start spinning that idea and maybe twisting it a bit. So you start getting, my name is Earl, and then from that it starts going into later versions, and then you've got Community, and now you've got kind of Rick and Morty and these and BoJack Horseman, which is phenomenal. Everything evolves and everything builds on the things before.
Yes.
So technically, the stuff that is being created now is going to be better because they look at all the clever tricks that were done before them. They've got 40 years of tricks that have come before them. Whereas classic cinema, they didn't have the tricks. And what made some of these movies so great was that they invented the tricks, or that they did the things that had never been done for the first time, or they made people feel emotions they'd never felt before while watching a movie. So sometimes classics aren't necessarily better. You think about how simple the Beatles is and how simple music is, like how complex music can be now.
Yes.
In terms of what makes a really good song now.
Yeah.
Things always have to keep evolving. So when we talk about classic cinema, we're talking about movies that hopefully made a stamp on time, their own time.
Yeah.
Were impressive enough within their own time that we still recognize them to this day. And then, of course, for us, what is classic cinema? It's got to be something that, like, I don't know, maybe from before we were 10 years old, which is very different to most people who are listening to podcasts, where they're like, oh, Jesus, you talk about movies from the 80s? That's fucking old shit. Yeah, classic cinema, we're talking about like classic cinema, movies that have made a difference, I think, over time.
Yeah.
And that have impacted definitely the movies and the stories that we tell now. I think that's the classic. There we go.
Definitely. Interesting what makes a classic, and why things endure, why pieces of art endure. But yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah, I mean, it's arguable whether these things have endured. I mean, do kids of today go back in time and watch these movies? You know, I've never gone back in time and watched movies pre-1930s or pre-1940s. I mean, for one reason, it's almost impossible. Many of those movies were lost. You know, there was a couple fires that basically took out most of the movies, and now we simply can't see them again. But I've never made an effort to go back in time and really watch anything more than a handful of old movies.
I had a go in lockdown, which is why I'm terribly excited about today's episode, because it did blow my mind. It was beautiful. We'll get into, but I think it's your turn to start.
Right.
What are you going to hit us with?
All right, let me start with one that the internet knows, but Ryan Whittle may not.
Okay.
It's a tale as old as the film. Maybe you've heard it, right? The story goes that in The Wizard of Oz, you know The Wizard of Oz?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, 1939's The Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
Basically the movie that introduced the concept of color in films.
Yes.
This is how old it is. 1939. This is the year that World War II broke out, is how old this film is. And this is a story from then. And the story is, and this is the story, is that on set, one of the little people who played a munchkin committed suicide.
Oh, my word.
By hanging themselves.
Ooh.
And if you watch the movie...
Oh, no.
There's a few frames where you can actually see them.
Oh, the hanging munchkin.
You see the hanging munchkin. Now, Ryan, this is why I said it so sternly and seriously, because I didn't want you to smile at it. I didn't want you to laugh, because there's nothing funny. There's nothing funny about a hanging munchkin. It's not like a pinata or anything. You can't look at the hanging. It's not full of sweets. It's not funny, Ryan. It's very serious. But it's unfortunately true, is my fact.
Okay, some of the songs. We're off to see the Wizard, the Wonderful Wizard of that songs. There, then Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Golly.
What a classic! Yeah.
Oh wow, Judy Garland is her name. Hey?
Judy Garland. Yeah.
Judy Garland. Oh wow.
No, she obviously very famously. Listen, the stories of this particular set are very, very dark. There's a lot of quite dark stories
of the whole set of
the
Wizard
whole
of Oz?
production of the Wizard of
Really?
Oz. Yeah, for one thing, Judy Garland was kind of like she was too young, and she was being treated like an adult, and kind of like, in modern era, you talk about senior Hollywood executives being creepy with young girls, and that what happened on that set and in her career led to massive drug addiction.
Oh,
And then there was some serious injuries and stuff on the set. So the set itself carries quite a lot of dark stories, but this one is very famously the most dark of them all.
yeah. I think this is an urban legend, urban myth. As you were telling it to me, and then me sitting here for a bit, I think I've heard it before, but in the category of urban legend, urban myth. I don't think it's true. Golly. And so I'm going to say the fact is a lie. Yes, it's endured as an urban myth, urban legend, and maybe you can see a munchkin that seems to be hanging in a tree in the distance, but no, I don't think a munchkin.
So let me tell you a little bit
himself.
like why we still talk about it to this day, because I mean, obviously with the number of incidents on set and the things that happened, it literally was a story right from the very beginning. And it carried through in time. And it really got given new impetus when they released the 50th anniversary edition in 1989, which is why it actually plays out particularly for like our generation, just kind of our coming to awareness of pop culture.
Yes.
They released this 50th anniversary, and in the lead up to that, the stories surfaced again, and people were renting the video from video stores, and they were pausing it and they were analyzing it.
My word.
And now then you suddenly start getting early internet, and people are talking about and showing the paused images and discussing it on early chat forums and whatever. So that's why it's actually stuck as an enduring memory, particularly for us, because it's one of those, as I say, right about when we first start noticing these things in the world, and then it gets carried over into the early internet with chat rooms and forums and that sort of stuff. And people have got the facility to pause the movie for the first time in properly a good version of the movie for the first time. So that's why it's kind of stuck around in our minds.
I hear you, and I'll still say the fact itself is not true. The rumor and the urban myth that I've heard, but I don't think it can be confirmed as being true. Well, they would have known. Production would have known. My God, there's a dead guy in the tree. Cut. No pun intended.
So
when the director
again,
calls cut, I'll say no.
So on that, I'm just going to take you into movie making. I'm not saying you're wrong or I'm trying to change your mind or anything, but I'm just saying at that time when they went into movies, remember everything was filmed on reels. So you kind of filmed 4 takes of a thing on movie reel. You didn't have a digital version that you could go back and forth, and then you cut it.
That's right.
You literally cut the film and you stitched it together. So it's definitely not a feature. I'm not saying it's a thing that you can see. What I'm saying is, so what it is it actually happens when they're singing "We're Off to See the Wizard" about 45 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
It's the Tin Man, Scarecrow, and Dorothy on the Yellow Brick Road, and they're moving towards us.
Okay.
Singing "We're Off to See the Wizard," and there is a few seconds where you can see it in the background. So the question is, did they see it and know it?
Okay.
And then remove it and then film 2 more takes or 3 more takes, and did they try and avoid it? But this happened to be the only good take on the day. You know what I mean?
So you haven't revealed your answer yet.
No. I'm definitely not saying you're wrong.
No, I'm sticking with my what I'm saying. It all depends on what the technicalities of your fact are. But I'm saying it didn't occur. There was no suicide.
So you're
Of a
saying there's no
munchkin.
munchkin. You can't see a munchkin, is what you're saying.
Maybe you can, but it's not from suicide. It might be a prop, or it might be a person. But there's no suicide or dead munchkin
Okay.
in the shot.
Okay, so that's your final answer.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Because it is in fact false. Yeah, it is.
Oh,
it is
thank
false.
God.
Yeah.
Oh, what a terrible thing that would be, hey? Yes, like.
Yeah, what it is it's actually so they went to the. You can see something that looks like a munchkin hanging in the background. You can see what appears to be. Stop laughing. A very depressed munchkin in the background hanging off in the forest.
Okay.
But what it is they went to a local zoo because they're outside, right? And they went and they borrowed a bunch of birds from the local zoo and they let them loose in the studio because they were like, oh, if they appear in the background, it'll be really nice because this is supposed to be outside, but we're filming it in a studio.
Yeah.
And what that is, that particular thing, is it's a crane. So you can't see its really
Jeez,
thin. You can't see its really thin, stalky legs. You can just see the fat body and the long neck. And it looks like it's hanging, like a hanging munchkin, but what it is it's a crane, and it became this absolute phenomenon. Yeah,
Oh my flippin' word!
you can see some of these birds in other scenes. There's one where there's a live peacock outside the Tin Man's shack, while Dorothy and Scarecrow are attempting to revive him. But in this case, it's definitely a bird with a fat body and a long neck and very skinny little. Some people say it's an emu. The vast majority of sources say it's a crane. But geez, you want to hear about a dark set like this? These days, this thing would be cancelled after day one.
Oh.
Just a number of stuff. Buddy Ebsen, who was originally cast to play the Tin Man, he ended up in an iron lung after using the silver makeup on his skin, which contained toxic aluminium powder. I mean, very famously, Margaret Hamilton, who played the Wicked Witch, suffered from second-degree burns on her face during filming. And after that, her stunt double also experienced severe burns on the inside of her legs when a broomstick exploded. This broomstick was essentially like a massive firework. It was just like the whole thing is a disaster. Like classic movies. You know, I mean, at the same time, there's also these stories of quite ingenuity. You know how they did the swap between the sepia real world and the colorful, because this was their introduction to a colorful world in movies. So they had the whole first lead up, the real world was all filmed in sepia. And then they had to do the swap between sepia to the magical land of Oz. What they did was they literally dressed everybody in sepia and did sepia makeup on them, and then had doubles playing the characters revealed in full color as the change happened over to Wizard of Oz.
Wow.
So there was no simple filter you could smash on this thing back in the day. They had to dress one cast in full sepia and the other one in full color, and then film it like that with a color.
What a
color camera.
explosion! What a revelation! So you're saying in Kansas it's still black and white, then?
Well, yeah, it's like a sepia color. Yeah,
okay, and then when you enter Oz, it's
right,
this
and they filmed it with a full
explosion.
color camera. They filmed it with a full color camera, but they just had the characters and the backgrounds and the set and everything was in that kind of, you know, monochromatic coloring that they were used to, and then when Oz came in, it came in full color, and it was this like mind
must have
blowing,
literally blown minds. It's an incredible fact. Absolutely incredible fact. And I keep forgetting one of the most amazing humans of all time. I keep forgetting his name.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but besides him, there's the guy who produced
Muhammad Ali.
No, he produced Thriller, the black music producer.
Quincy Jones.
Quincy Jones. Because, did you know, fun fact, because you brought up Wizard of Oz, that of course the Motown did a version of Oz where Michael Jackson was
in
played
it,
the Scarecrow, and Diana Ross was Dorothy, and the dude who wrote the music for Wizard of Oz was certain Quincy Jones. He scored it, and that's where he met Michael, and that's when they started talking about Michael leaving the Jackson 5. So Quincy produced Off the Wall with him, which was his first debut, but then of course they carried on. And Quincy produced Thriller and Bad. I don't think but Dangerous. I think Michael had left Quincy, but they met on Wizard of Oz because Quincy scored it. Lovely. Wizard of Oz, man. Oh, that's a beautiful fact. I'm glad no munchkins were harmed in the making
Right?
of this fact.
Yeah. In fact, listen, that particular scene, it's so wrong that particular scene was shot before the munchkins had even been hired. So that particular scene, there were no munchkins even on set yet. So where this rumor came from or why, it does, when you see it, it does look a bit like somebody hanging from the tree, a bit. But there's a million other things it could be as well. and it's really stuck. It's stuck to the point that when I arrived here this evening to shoot this podcast, our editor was like, "Oh yeah, Munchkin, he committed suicide." Yeah, what a moron you are, Matt.
Matt. Man, well, that is a very, very lovely fact, and didn't it happen? And that leads into my first fact about, which is a biographical one, and I think if I'm sold on something, then I'll go and watch it. Like people say, you've got to watch that. It's a recommendation, and I got to give credit to a YouTube channel that needs no more subscribers. WatchMojo.com. I like those
right.
videos.
No, they need zero.
And I think if they go the 10 best sort of classic movies of all time,
then just one. Watch Mojo. We've now shouted you out. It's only right. Yeah. Only right to shout us out.
The 10 most underrated podcasts of all time.
Yeah, number one.
Yeah, and I think if they say you got to watch these 10 classics, then they're one of mine. Then I'll give it a go. And in lockdown, I thought I'd give a go to some classics, like my first fact for today, Lawrence of Arabia.
I thought you were going to say Deep Throat.
Is it a classic?
I think it's a classic. It's a horrifying classic, but it is one.
So I loved it. It's long, but that's okay. I don't know why it didn't bother me. The length didn't bother me. I found it wonderful. And there's a few reasons. There's many reasons it's wonderful, but the big ones are the setting. It's really beautiful. It must be the Arabian desert. I actually can't tell you what desert, but the desert is beautiful. The music is beautiful. That's another one. And Peter O'Toole's acting, I thought, was wonderful. Wonderful.
He's a historical character fraught with bullshit, right? Like
Lawrence.
Lawrence, yeah. The Middle East problem wouldn't exist if it weren't for Lawrence of Arabia, essentially. But
he's and so which things are true, which things aren't true, and then this puzzles me because a movie like the one about Amadeus, not everything in there is true. And then part of me goes, and there's a movie called The Favourites about one of the queens, and she was...
quite often these things get filled in. I think on a previous podcast we talked about historical fiction and how these things are quite often just kind of imagined retellings of a thing. And I feel like Lawrence of Arabia lent quite heavily on that.
Yes, but for whether it's true or not, what you can't deny is it's this force. This moment in history, in time and space.
Oh, as a movie, definitely.
Wow. Yeah, as a person and then a movie. So there was the reason for the movie, but the person was a thing, a talking point, and the movie became this thing. Beautiful movie. Now, one of the things in the movie is that he orchestrated. So his first big thing is to conquer a port city called Aqaba, I think. I think it's called Aqaba. That's what he did. And then suddenly they're full-on warfare with the Ottoman Empire, the Turks, and he's now blowing up the railway line between Medina and Damascus. My fact is that the movie makes out as if it's his idea. They were doing it months before that. The French and the British. Wasn't Lawrence's idea. That's one of quite a few things.
Definitely. There's historical inaccuracies throughout that movie. I do not know the real truth of this, but I'm going to say, yes, that was one of the many numerous historical inaccuracies of this particular movie, because they definitely glorify the guy, right? Like, they don't make a big deal out of him. When history sort of... he's a questionable character. Yeah. So maybe he did it, maybe he didn't. But I like to jump immediately upon the fact that a movie could potentially be historically inaccurate. And if that movie is Lawrence of Arabia, then I'm doubly keen to believe that it could be historically inaccurate. You're about to tell me it's true.
I am. You're right. Clever boy. It's he did definitely continue blowing up the railway lines, but it wasn't his idea, and it was being done before. So that's part of the thing, is like he's this isolated hero, but no, there's people around him doing things, but he definitely did enough to stand out and to make a big splash. And he was provocative enough in his the way he embraced and embraced, whatever word you want to use there, the Arabian people. Pretty fascinating. Of course, the big question that people will always wonder about is the Turkish prison stuff. Did it really happen? There's a Turkish prison scene, and
was that Midnight Express? Did you ever see that?
Oh yeah, I did.
Yeah, those were Turkish prison scenes of serious.
Yeah,
that was an excellent film.
It was. Oof, yeah. And so people will always wonder, and it's almost like it's based on a book called The Seven Pillars of Wisdom, Lawrence of Arabia, which he wrote himself, T.E. Lawrence.
imagine how arrogant you have to be like, here are the 7 smartest things said by a human being, and that human being is me. Like, it's fuck you. It's like the Buddha writing his own, the Buddha, 5 stars, awesome guy. Like, he doesn't speak like that, the Buddha.
And Lawrence, it was mysterious about what happened, but I think he suggested that he was sort of violated in that Turkish prison scene. And then the movie doesn't know what to do with it, but the movie, I'd say they want to suggest that he was. And then it's like, did he go there knowingly that it was going to happen to him? Because that's also a suggestion, a historical suggestion. It's all rather mysterious about the Turkish prison scene.
Yeah, as far as I know, that's a historical open end anyway.
Yeah. Lawrence.
I don't use open end casually there.
Beautiful movie. Music, setting.
You had a very Donald Trumpian, beautiful movie.
Love
good
that.
people, beautiful movie.
Oh, my favorite line from the movie is, there's a dude, today they're calling it cultural appropriation because he plays an Arab chief, but he's British. But that dude still did a nice performance. But he's having a conversation with Lawrence, and he says to Lawrence, he says, why do you British love the desert? People think us Arabs love the desert. We don't. We love water and green trees.
All right.
I just found that so funny.
I mean, it is one of those movies where, like, it can only exist in its time. Just even calling it Lawrence of Arabia, like Larry of Arabia. Like, Lawrence is firstly a name that has gone very heavily out of fashion. And of Arabia, it's got that Jesus of Nazareth kind of feel to it. You know what I mean? Like, that kind of arrogance of the British to be like, oh no, it's Lawrence. It's not Muhammad or Mustafa of Arabia. It's Lawrence. Lawrence is of Arabia, No, Lawrence is of Chiswick, like Lawrence grew up in some fucking part of some dodgy part of England. Like, he's not Lawrence of Arabia. He's Lawrence of Somerset and occasionally of Cornwall. Like, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. This fucking colonial idea that Lawrence owned the Middle East. Fuck off. Lawrence was a British asshole who fucked up the... Let's not...
Okay.
I'm going to let that one slide.
No, I like
this. But holy shit, did they love a Middle Eastern movie back in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. They could, if they could film something in the Middle East, some sort of giant epic.
Yes.
Cleopatra, obviously, this massive, water world of its day, huge sets in LA. Liz Taylor.
Hey?
Yeah, Liz Taylor, that's right. The 10 Commandments. Do you know the 10 Commandments?
Oh, yes, I love that.
Yeah. So there's these big kind of grandiose Middle Eastern adventures. And Ben-Hur, you may have heard of this one. 1959's Ben-Hur.
Oh, I still haven't seen it, man.
Yeah, so
but
starring Charlton Heston.
Yeah.
He's this kind of tangential character to Jesus. He's sort of living in the era of Jesus, but he's having adventures from being like a slave in a galley to very famously taking part in a chariot race.
Ooh.
And obviously there's a big story about the chariot race. Absolutely epic. I mean, these days we couldn't imagine filming a chariot race the way they did it. We talk about, like, if we do a gladiator movie, we did Gladiator.
Yes.
Starring Russell Crowe. And Gladiator, what they did was they built a quarter of the stadium.
Yes.
And then they they kind of digitally placed that quarter of the stadium the whole way around, and they
Okay.
saved money. But yeah,
painting
with
it.
Ben-Hur, they basically built an entire stadium set, and they filmed the whole thing. It was
Jeez.
this insane big production that took
An
all
actual
day.
chariots racing.
An actual chariots racing, yeah.
Ooh.
And that's where my fact comes in, is that a stuntman during the filming of the epic chariot race in Ben-Hur died during the race, and if you watch the movie, it's like the Munchkin factors. If you watch the movie just for a few seconds, you can see that stuntman die. And I'll even go so far as to tell you exactly when it happens. The chariots come around a corner,
Mm.
as they do in their big line, and the chariot hits a bump and it bounces, and then you can't really see what's happening, but the guy falls off and the chariot rides over him. So somehow he sort of falls off, and then and that's apparently the moment when he died.
So it bounces the
It kind of like it sort of must have hit something rough in the they didn't have
was it Michelin or
No.
or was it Goodyear?
No, it wasn't. This isn't like Formula One, It's not like, I don't have like, this isn't, damn you, Pirelli, ruined Alpine's year with your constantly degrading tires, ruined Ben-Hur with your constantly degrading chariot. No, it's these hard wheels, and obviously they can't make the ground perfectly flat. So it hit a bump in the thing, and the chariot just took off, like it took off, and the guy fell off and got driven over by the chariot and trampled a wee bit, I suppose. I don't, but because you can't really see what happened. It's a few seconds, but people point to that and circle it and go, that's the moment the stuntman died. And obviously they're trying not to put it in, but it's a single shot. So it's a very long single shot of them coming around the corner. So you can see and then off screen. And the bounce happens almost as it's coming off screen. So you can almost see why they're like, it's a cracking shot. Fuck that guy. Put it in. Like you can almost see why they did
a bunch of flowers.
Yeah, I mean, so according to many of the sources, not all the sources, many of the sources for this story say that the widow like fucking strongly objected. Yeah, I sent them numerous letters saying, please take him the fuck out of the movie, but they were like, nah, this is too good. Like, because the chariots, I mean, they're all in different colors and they line up coming around that corner. You could, and then it happens. You see the lead chariot disappear, and then this one, just as it's going off, and you think, it's a money shot. It's a cracking shot. It's a cracking shot.
Money
and that's
shot,
where they like pause it, and you can see him fall off, and you can see him go under the thing, and that's
spent
the actual.
All this money, built all these sets, got all these extras, all this thing,
and you are insensitive enough to die.
Yeah.
But look. So also, just as a corollary to this, there are a lot of movies in which people died on set, and then they say, "Oh, you can see it in the final footage." The Munchkin, nobody even had to die for them to say that. But The Crow, for instance, when with Brandon Lee,
yes.
He got shot in an incident, and people say, "Oh, you can see the final footage from that incident you can't."
Okay.
So there's a lot of stories where that is a thing. This is just one example of such an event.
Wow. Well, my knee-jerk reaction, which is something that stuntmen won't ever be able to do again. Maybe did. It was his last movement.
He definitely did a movement. That is literally the last thing we do when we die, is we do a movement. Anyway, that's why they say wear clean underpants so that you can shit in them when you get hit by a bus.
Right. Well, we get some fun facts on this show, don't we, ladies and gentlemen? So, I mean, I'm inclined to go, yes, it did happen. It's about the legalities and the ethics. Are they allowed to?
Oh, today? Certainly, absolutely fucking not. No, definitely. Like back then, there literally were no rules. There were no rules. I mean, so one of the things about this was apparently the stunt coordinator was, I mean, basically they just use the horses, because today you couldn't race chariot races against each other because the horses would get injured.
Shit.
But now, I mean, now you can't do it. But then,
yes,
it's this massive problem,
There was also, I don't think would have had those Scythian chariots, but those are ones with little like weird weapons coming out of them.
No, so they've got traditional kind of wheels and.
Wow.
But I mean,
I'm still inclined to say that your fact is actually true. This time it's true. We're not talking munchkins here.
He's just like, it's too tragic if it's a munchkin, but fuck the stunt guy.
10 little munchkins hanging in the tree. 10 little munchkins.
We are so cats.
But yeah, Ben-Hur saw a dead extra, man, a dead stunt man. I'm gonna say yes, it's true.
As I say, it is in a long line of false dead stuntman things. Are you sure? There's a lot of rumors.
You're not telling me? Okay.
No, what I'm saying is no. What I'm saying is there's a lot of movies, like I said with The Crow, where there's a story of a death on set that wound up in the final scene. I'm saying that is a thing that happens in movies.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sticking with it. I'm sticking with it like a Scythian chariot sword sticks to the kneecap of a Philistine.
Wow, good one.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's false.
Okay.
Yeah, it's false. It's absolutely like nonsense. The shot exists.
Yeah.
Guy, you can see him sort of fall off, sort of
like. It's cack, eh?
Yeah, but here's where the rumor comes in, right? So this one actually has a basis in reality. So 1959's Ben-Hur is the famous one, starring Charlton Heston.
Okay.
There was a previous version made by MGM, the same studio, in 1926, in which a stuntman was in fact killed during the filming of the chariot race.
Oh dear.
So what happens is it gets kind of, the waters and the stories get muddied between these two versions, the 1926 version and the 1959 version. According to a guy by the name of Kevin Brownlow, he wrote a book called The Parades Gone By in 1969. What they wanted to do with the 1926 version was shoot the original race at the Circus Maximus, a recreation of the Circus Maximus in Rome. So they built this massive set, and then they had a day worth of chariot races, during which the one stuntman died. And the guy, his name was Francis X. Bushman. He played the character of Messala, who's the bad guy's charioteer. He sort of explained in that book that during one take, we went around a curve, the wheel broke on the other fellow's chariot. I looked behind me and I saw he was 30 feet in the air and he landed on a pile of logs and he died.
Oh.
So he talks about that. But like, this thing was brutal. It was genuinely like killer. There's a point in the final choreographed pileup where Messala finally dies in the chariot race in this 1926 version, where 5 horses were killed.
Oh,
the 5 horses got
Lord.
Injured and were finally killed. So it's a huge thing that ultimately got carried over to the 1959 movie. But in the 1959 movie, there's no stories of anybody's dying.
Okay.
We would have had a moment where somebody said something. But even Charlton Heston's 1995 autobiography called In the Arena states that no one was seriously injured during the shooting of Ben-Hur. So yeah, like 1959's Ben-Hur, absolutely clean.
Okay.
1926 is an absolute clusterfuck of death. and it's those stories, it's those stories that have carried over to the 1959 one. So there you go.
Man, I will watch Ben-Hur just because one must. It seems like one should. And I like Charlton Heston. He was Moses, I think, in Ten Commandments. Wasn't he Moses?
Oh, I mean,
think
that could have been.
And he plays this beautiful character in one of these.
Called Moses.
No, and in this other movie that I loved. It's a very, very, seems like low-budgety kind of set. A Man for All Seasons. Because it's a stage play and they made a movie of it. And it's very low budget movie, but beautiful acting. And he plays Thomas More, Sir Thomas More, Charlton Heston. And it's a great performance. Love it. Oh man. So I will watch Ben-Hur.
I mean, give yourself 7 hours, like give yourself some time to settle in and really, really enjoy it. I mean, you could probably the thing I found about it that was so interesting was how slow it was and how everybody delivers their lines with heavy. It was one of the things I found about Laurence Olivier. Everybody's like, "Oh, Laurence Olivier, what a great actor," but quite the cinture, old Laurence Olivier. Like, love to really heavy-handedly deliver his lines.
Yeah.
Like he was selling you a piece of meat that if you didn't buy it, you're going to die. This meat It's the most important thing you've ever. And
Great presence. But I don't mind that, the Oaks who just have got it, you know.
what's the guy, the scene chewer from Gangs of New York and My Left Foot and
Oh, the actor, hey?
his name
Daniel
of-
Day-Lewis.
Daniel
was
Day-Lewis.
wonderful,
Yeah. Well, again, a scene chewer, you know, unafraid of absolutely making everything about him.
What is
that's
that
a-
word? Scene chewer.
Scene chewer, yeah.
How do you
yeah, like-
spell that? What
like-
is that word?
Well, scene. Like he
Yes.
stole this. He chewed
Oh,
the scene.
scene
the
chewer.
Chewer, yeah. Yeah. So that's the term you give to somebody who just really just eats up all the attention on set, and that's
But that's a negative word, hey?
yeah. Daniel Day-Lewis is the last of them. See, with his blustery, weird accents and his over-the-top. Oh, I drink your milkshake. You know, you don't get an actor like that anymore. You
Yeah.
don't. Actors these days, it's all about understating everything, and then they just keep giving the Oscars to these. Oh, let me drink your milkshake. Kind of fucking. Nobody speaks like that. What is going on here? Stop giving Daniel Day-Lewis the Oscars. Like, click, share if you agree that Daniel Day-Lewis is overrated.
You're going to get such wonderful alternative perspectives on this podcast, but maybe insightful too, and maybe perspective shifting.
I'm going to be told exactly why Daniel Day-Lewis is the greatest actor of all time until the day I die. Yeah, until the day I die.
Because he does. I remember the milkshake scene. I haven't even seen the whole movie, but someone showed me the milkshake scene.
Yeah. No, it's over the top. Nobody speaks like that. It's not it's not a thing, you know. But it's why Al Pacino is regarded as a great actor. He's also a massive scene chewer.
Yeah.
Big like.
Yeah.
And you think about even Jack Nicholson, great actor, but his most famous scene is where he's chewing the scenery. You know, the truth, you can't handle the truth. You know that over the top fucking yeah. Anyway,
fascinating. To chew or not to chew the scene?
No, Laurence Olivier loved a bit of a scene chewing, and it comes out of an era where the movies everybody was broody and scene chewery and sort of like these epic films. They demanded a certain level of I will have my revenge, and Russell Crowe this day or the next, kind of like there's a certain kind of film.
All right. I'll be aware of that. This is lovely. Next time I watch a scene chewing thing, you're getting a WhatsApp in the middle of the night.
For you. It's going to ruin everything for you.
You're going to get a WhatsApp in the middle of the night.
Look, you never see it in a romantic comedy. That's, you know.
Well, here's a chap I don't think was a scene chewer. I think he was quite just, well, you might disagree with me. Humphrey Bogart in Casablanca. You think he was a scene chewer?
I mean, he's more understated than I think a lot of the people around him, to be perfectly honest. It's quite a good performance. It's quite, I quite like it. Yeah.
And DuckTales was when I first learned about Casablanca, because they do that scene at the end. The big pilot. Maybe not today and maybe not tomorrow, but soon and for the rest of your life. Yeah, he does that little scene in DuckTales, and I thought that was such a beautiful scene. It was a beautiful TV show. We discussed it on the podcast.
Yeah.
But that was my introduction to Casablanca. And in lockdown, I also watched Casablanca.
You know, I often say that the classic cartoons were my introduction to many things.
Yeah.
The number of times that your kind of classic Bugs Bunny
they would have
introduced
Gone
me to
with the
opera
Wind
or,
and-
you know,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yes, and all the music,
That's
the
right.
Mozart. It's lovely. So Casablanca, I did thoroughly enjoy it. It's a beautiful movie. The story, roughly the setting, you know what the setting's about, the time and the place. Do you know?
Yeah, but, you know, share.
All right. So it's about...
Don't ask me questions I know the answers to.
It's about the Second World War. Casablanca is in Morocco. And so the war's obviously taking place in Europe, and it's also starting to take place in North Africa and the Mediterranean. And so rich people from Europe are coming through, are crossing the Mediterranean. I don't know why. Or they're making their way along the coast of the North Africa to Casablanca by a train, catching a flight from there to the neutral Portugal, to Lisbon, and then probably a ship to America, or a plane to maybe a ship. I'm not
You
sure.
don't know why.
they're escaping the war in
That's
Europe.
right, Ryan. That's right. That's right. You said I don't know why they're doing that. Of course they're doing what
Yes.
rich people do.
Yes,
they don't want to be involved in war.
Yes, absolutely. And so in Casablanca, there's this cafe. It's an American-run cafe called Rick's Cafe or something, and that's the scene where a lot of things start happening. And then some Germans rock up. The French are running it. There's Americans who want to get away, and there's rich people. But there's a lot of people who try and exploit the rich and try and sell them dodgy tickets, and that's the setting of Casablanca. So it's really quite emotionally charged and highly dramatic, emotionally and it all happens
because of emotions.
And it all happens at this little Rick's Cafe.
All the emotions.
All the emotions, and there's a lovely twist. But the crazy thing is, this was here's my fact. It was filmed during the Second World War. So it's about the Second World War, and it's filmed during the Second World War. That's my fact.
No idea when it came out. I've literally
I mean, but like, shit, hey?
But was it filmed in Casablanca?
I don't think so.
Star Wars was filmed in Casablanca. I think Star Wars had some scenes in Morocco. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I don't think so because, truth be told, like the Rick's Cafe scene, you could do anywhere. So I think there was in a studio in LA. Hey? Yeah.
So you think it happened all pre the war, and then somebody took that story to LA and went, listen, boy, do I have a story for you. There's this place in Casablanca that could make the most romantic story you've ever heard in your entire life. There's a piano player in it. These are the things I know about it. It's in Casablanca. Yeah. I also know that Moroccan tours and tour guides and stuff, and people, when they talk about tourism to Morocco, they're always like, listen, beautiful country. We've got a beautiful country. Just don't go to Casablanca. It's not worth it.
That's funny.
Casablanca is Morocco's Johannesburg.
Oh, I see. And if they say, where was the movie filmed? What movie? Wait, what movie are you talking about? Yeah.
Oh. No. That's why people want to go to Casablanca. And quite often tours end in Casablanca because, you only need a few hours to kind of gauge what's going on there. But apparently not such a great city to be a tourist. But as somebody who comes from Johannesburg and loves Johannesburg and knows Johannesburg is the oft-ignored city in South Africa, maybe I've got a soft spot for Casablanca.
Yeah, maybe we should go to Casablanca.
Let me think about it. No, it wasn't filmed during World War II. I mean, it could have been because the Americans was notoriously late on the whole vibe, weren't they? They like to show up to a war late and with their dicks out. That's what Americans like.
As an aside, I think it's jolly insensitive to make a movie about the Second World War during the Second World War. I just think it's jolly insensitive.
I mean, particularly when it's like allegedly a romantic kind of, I don't know, it's the kind of film they could only really film in that era, isn't it? Nobody really goes, hey, listen, here's a film really kind of Seinfeldianly about nothing. It's about nothing. It's sort of about a couple. It's sort of about people who get together and hang out in this place, like Cheers. It's a bit, but actually nothing happens at the end, really. Like at the end of all of it, we don't get any kind of giant sense of satisfaction. We don't learn anything.
Yeah. And so your final answer is?
Curse you, Ryan. No, it wasn't filmed during World War II.
Okay, sweet. It absolutely was.
You son of a bitch.
And the story about it, there was a similar movie before Casablanca called Algiers, which had a similar romantic, sad storyline about I loved her but can't be with her because blah blah blah. Not spoiling the plot. See the movie; it's lovely. The original screenplay.
Is it on Netflix? Algiers.
No, I don't think so. And it was the original screenplay was inspired by a trip to Europe. Just giving you the facts, the actual facts here. Made by Murray Burnett and his wife in 1938, during which they visited Vienna shortly after the Anschluss. The Anschluss was when the Nazis pulled into Austria, but it was still before they invaded Poland. And they were affected by the anti-Semitism, even at the Anschluss. In the south of France, they went to a nightclub that had many multinational clientele, among them many exiles and refugees, and the prototype of Sam, the old piano man. In The Guardian, Paul Fairclough wrote that Cinema Vox in Tangier was Africa's biggest when it opened in 1935 with 2,000 seats and a retractable roof. As Tangier was in Spanish territory, the theater's wartime bar heaved with spies, refugees, and underworld hoods, securing its place in cinematic history as the inspiration for Rick's Cafe in Casablanca. The scene of the singing of La Marseillaise in the bar is attributed by the film scholar Julian Jackson as an adaptation of a similar scene from Jean Renoir's film La Grande Illusion 5 years prior. So taken from bits and pieces here and there.
So what's nice about that is it came from this one couple's trip to Europe, and they were inspired so much that they wrote this beautiful all-time classic. And the most recent film I can think of that is about an American's trip to Europe is Euro Trip, in which the boys get hit on by the strange Spanish man. Italian, sorry. Scusi. I mean, scusi. Really, civilization may have plummeted somewhat in the last 60 or 70 years.
So, yeah, I like the fact that they did experience something, but they just set it in a more
neutral
North African romantic sort of setting. But it did happen, and then they were at this place in the south of France with all these weird people, and so the imagination got churning. But
what's wonderful about that is,
and then filmed in the bloody middle of the war.
What's wonderful about it is that it is that quintessential when writers get given advice.
Yeah.
What do you write about? You write about what you know.
Exactly.
And
which I agree
they
with.
literally did a thing, wrote about it, and turned it into one of the classic movies.
Yeah.
That people still talk about on podcasts in 2023.
Yeah. No, I think
Unbelievable.
Great. I enjoyed it very much. Watch Casablanca. It's lovely.
Yeah. So, all right. This fact is a little bit interesting because it's mainly about South Africa, right?
Ooh.
Yeah. So how do you talk about classic movies in South Africa? Well, I'm going to talk about the apartheid government, and I'm going to talk about the way that our government has treated movies in general. Since 1996, in 1996, we formed the Film Publication Board, and since then we've banned 2 movies from being shown. Of Good Report, which was a romantic thriller film, which was banned for containing scenes of child pornography that were too real.
Okay.
And we banned another movie in 2017 called Inkleba.
Oh, yes.
Also known as The Wound, which is a Xhosa language film about a group of young men who travel to the Eastern Cape for their initiation, and it's about their homosexual relationships and stuff.
Okay.
Both of which the bannings were overturned in court afterwards.
Oh, I see.
So we had 2 bannings. My fact is that prior to 1996 and the foundation of this particular thing, the South African government firstly censored 1,300 films a year. They went into films and they cut things and they deleted things and they edited words out and they adjusted things.
Yeah.
But my main fact is that they banned 105 mainstream, global, worldwide released films. Banned them. They were released everywhere in the world. They were banned in South Africa.
I'm okay with that figure. I believe Last Tango in Paris was one of them. And then our good comedian friend Al Prodgers, when it was unbanned, he went to go see it, and he wasn't that impressed. And
the classic Bernardo Bertolucci movie.
Yeah, well, was that Last Tango?
Last Tango in Paris.
And all he thought was, with the famous Marlon Brando butter scene, is like.
I mean, that's why it was banned.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. That film was banned. Maria Schneider and Marlon Brando, they use butter as a lubricant for their sexual.
And since then, Al just said, I think since that movie, Marlon Brando's eaten a lot of butter.
I mean, to be honest, that's a 1978 movie. That's some time ago. But yeah, so we banned 105 movies. The apartheid government, South Africa. So you're me and my chummers. South Africa government
watching a lot of nasty shit. Well, maybe not that nasty. I'm happy to say that it's not an unreasonable amount for the context. 105. Yes,
And what if I
fact
told
is
you?
true.
What if I told you that many of these movies were classics? That many of those movies would fit within.
Tango in Paris is some kind of erotic drama, but it has probably gone down as a bit of a, pardon the pun, as a bit of a classic.
So I'm saying many of these movies you will recognize the name of as instant classics.
Sure, maybe Lady Chatelier's Lover, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Maybe
did they make a version of Lady Chatelier's Lover? I mean, the book was definitely banned in America. There was the massive court case that.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very famous court case that kind of freed it up to be sold, and it sold in phenomenal numbers, mainly because it was banned. Have you read Lady Chatelier's Lover?
It's good.
Yeah, it's difficult to wank to.
It's because they use too many commas and like long sentences.
I mean, my word, just get to the rutting, you know? Anyway, yeah, 105 movies, we banned them.
You're going to turn a lot of pages. Yeah, I'm still happy to say yes, they did ban 105 movies.
Are you happy that that's high enough?
It could be higher. It could be higher, but I'll stick to 105. It could be higher, but no, I'll stick to 105.
Yeah, it's true. It was 105. True. But listen to this list of movies. Amongst the banned 105 included 1964's Zulu, starring Michael Caine.
Why?
1967's To Sir with Love. Many films with black actors were banned, straight up. But this one, starring Sidney Poitier, dealt with social and racial issues in an inner city school. So, of course, it was going to be something fucked over. Yes. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? Also, Sidney Poitier. Of course, it was going to be banned. Bonnie and Clyde. No,
really?
Yeah, historically, no reason given.
The one with old
Warren Beatty.
Yeah. They got pumped at the end, eh?
That's right. What a great film, though. But banned. Yeah. The Graduate. Banned.
Oh, he had an affair. I've got to see that movie still.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, it's all about corrupting our Christian ideology is a large part of, Finian's Rainbow is such a strange one. It's a Francis Ford Coppola directed sort of musical fantasy starring Fred Astaire and Petula Clark. Fred Astaire and Petula Clark, it's a dancey, I mean, it really seems unlikely, but apparently there's a bigoted and greedy white senator in it, and they didn't want to portray white politicians as being bigoted and greedy, which the apartheid government, let me let you in on a little secret, were all of white, bigoted, and greedy. Easy Rider, because obviously the drug use and everything else.
Word.
Clockwork Orange, obviously. The Exorcist.
Yeah.
Here are two surprising ones. Enter the Dragon and Blazing Saddles. Right? Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The film version of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Up in Smoke, the Cheech and Chong classic. As you said, Last Tango in Paris. Hair, the musical.
My.
Monty Python's Life of Brian, very famously. Monty Python's Life of Brian, to be fair, was banned in a lot of countries for being anti-Christian. In fact, in Sweden, it was sold with a tagline, "So funny, it was banned in Norway," which is a really good way to see it. Yeah.
Funny.
Friday the 13th. And you know what's funny about Friday the 13th being banned is that I watched it as a child, 10 years old, at my 10th birthday. So it must have been 1989, rented from the video store around the corner. Oh no, we all shat ourselves, but we were in that age where you're pretending you don't shit yourself because of these movies. You're so manly.
Nightmare on Elm Street made me shit myself. Yeah.
Literally.
No. Figuratively.
No, I can tell you shat yourself literally during the podcast. The Evil Dead. I mean, these movies. These are classic movies.
Yeah,
all the ban. I mean, stupid. No, as I say, only 2 since 1996, and both of them have been overturned. So if you want to argue about South Africa, maybe we don't have as much as electricity as we did before. But fuck, we're allowed to watch whatever we want, do whatever we want. Nobody's going to come and knock on your door and be like, "Hey, Ryan, that pornography you like watching."
Could you turn that Lady Chatelier's
Chatterley.
Chatterley.
Yeah,
Lady
Chatterley's
Chatterley.
lover.
Yeah. Fun fact about Zulu. I watched it not so long ago, and I even watched the credits because they played nice music.
They've blown the bloody doors off. No, I'm joking.
I
know that's from the Italian Job.
Did I tell you who? Did I tell you this fact? Who played? So the Zulu king at the time was King Cetshwayo.
Oh yes, we did it in a previous podcast.
Old,
that's right.
Mangosuthu Buthelezi.
yeah,
He actually plays King Cetshwayo.
And yet banned even with a South African actor.
Yeah.
Oh, it's almost like they don't like Rorke's Drift.
Yeah. Strange.
Hmm.
Very odd. But that brings me to my next fact, and this is an odd one because for some reason this has gone down as one of the greatest movies ever made. That's across the pond, both sides of the pond.
So everybody agrees it's one of the greatest movies ever made.
Yeah, and there's lists in America, lists in Europe, and of course I'm talking about Citizen Kane.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about Showgirls.
Oh, yeah,
I thought you were right in there with a
very
stripper
good.
movie.
Showgirls.
Elizabeth Barkley's greatest moment.
Very good. Yeah.
Very
I think
good.
the trailer was like her doing, like just moving on the pole very slowly for very long. Oh, I was like, okay, I'm waiting. Showgirls. All right, that's the movie.
Wow,
Good.
amazing. And then 20 years later, Magic Mike came out. Fucking hit. You know, I mean, Demi Moore couldn't get a break acting as a stripper, but Magic Mike, men, we don't like to watch that stuff. That's the thing about men. We don't like all that smut.
No.
You know, women like the smut.
Oh, they do.
They do. The women love the smut.
Oh,
Men,
they
yeah,
do.
men were like, "Ooh, strippers." No, we don't want to watch a movie
Yeah.
about strippers.
It gone down as one of the greatest movies ever made, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I did watch it, and I do think it is amazing. I was a bit surprised. I think I was expecting better.
Tits. Is that what you want? Because men don't like tits in a movie. That's why Citizen Kane famously, he never got his tits out.
Old Orson Welles.
Yeah,
he
not
never
once.
got his Wells out.
Not once in Citizen Kane. And this is the thing about movies men love. Not once in Citizen Kane did Orson Welles get out his magnificent norks. Did he get out his massive mommy milkers? Not one time. Not one time. You know, it's because men like their movies tasteful.
Yeah,
You know?
it's a lovely, tasteful movie.
That's right.
I think the real genius of it is almost like you watch it and you experience it and it's interesting. Then you're like, okay, that was what I experienced. But then when you read about it, like, oh shit, I might have missed that. Oh, that as well. Oh, it's actually made in that year. Okay, well that's very early. I guess that is.
What year was it?
impressive.
1948.
No, it's way earlier.
Really?
Yeah, it's. I'm not going to say it because it comes into my
Oh,
multiple
really?
choice.
Okay.
No, it doesn't come. I'll tell you. It's 1941.
1941. I was close.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's
also
middle of
during
the war
that bloody
again.
war
Yeah.
again. Yes, the Americans are fucking.
They were like, hey, while you guys are making wars, we're making classic films.
Being neutral is so cool. We got so much time on our hands
Yeah.
being neutral.
You guys would love it if you could make the kind of cash we're making selling you guys weapons.
and so the thing about it, which was incredible, was there was a lot of new things in it. Like they messed with the story narrative a lot. They start with the end, but then they have this weird thing where it tells you the whole guy's life in any case, and then you start finding out different perspectives, almost from the modern. The modern narrative device is called you can't trust the narrator.
Unreliable narrator.
Unreliable narrator. They added like a bit of that. And you don't, because people are talking about him, you don't really know if what they're saying is true. You get snippets and then it starts to go. But the use of the flashback is one of the kind of, it did it very well. It immersed you in flashback. It wasn't the first movie to do flashback, but really great. And I did find all of it, the great punchline, jolly profound. I found it jolly profound.
That when he says Rosebud, he's talking about his butthole.
It's profound.
Profound.
Butthole's important.
Rosebud.
There's the great tantrum scene, and hey, that must have been an expensive one-take wonder, because you can't cut. Can we put everything back in the room like it was before he broke it all? It's
Everything,
epic tantrum scene. I loved it, and but here's the fact. It is what is my fact? Because I'm gonna tell.
Your fact was that it was made during World War II.
Oh yes, and was the highest grossing movie of the 40s. Citizen Kane.
Higher than Casablanca. Outrageous. I'm pretty sure it was ignored. And then it was discovered later and only deemed a classic later. So you're a liar. Fuck off. I reckon you're talking bullshit.
What I want to say is, how the hell did you know that?
Because many things reside in my brain that are not useful information.
All right, so you're absolutely right. It released and didn't recoup the money it cost to make. So in that regard, didn't quite nail it. And then was discovered by the French. You might have covered this on a podcast.
Now, if Orson Welles had gotten his tits out,
yeah,
who knows what could have happened to the takings?
He managed to raise money.
Could have been the Avatar of its day.
I mean, he fucked up that room, eh? Yes. You fucked up that room, eh? You actually got to check that movie just for that scene.
Yeah, just check the bit where he fucks up the room, and then he talks about his butthole. This bit of conversation about Citizen Kane is quintessential unreliable narrator, is what it is. Yeah.
So indeed, and when the French said, "Hey, this is a good movie. Let's just put this in our classic list." Then it gained awareness, a second life, and then it made a lot of money, and then has subsequently gone down as one of the greatest movies ever made.
In fact, I think it was on that list created at the end in like 1999, 2000 as the greatest movie ever made of the last century.
Yeah,
so.
And Orson Welles was coming off the success of War of the Worlds, which was the radio drama. And based on that, he was able to sell himself, and they even agreed that he directed himself. So he co-wrote it, and he starred in it, and he directed it. First time director. So an incredible and a beautiful story, beautiful movie. Interestingly, this is well-known fact, but it's based on probably William Randolph Hearst. A combination of two characters, but he's definitely one of them. And I think he was a Chicago-based media mogul. Mogul.
Like that sounds like the characters from the Gremlins. Mogwais. Bright lights.
Mogul. Media mogul.
Yeah.
And the bugger, William, didn't. His papers were not allowed to mention the movie, which is maybe why no one heard about it and no one went to go watch it. What a bugger. How do you know? Bugger, eh?
Yeah. Yeah, don't, spoilers.
Your Rosebud Buggery.
That's right. Very good.
Rosebud Buggery going on. Rosebud, get it. I get it now. I see it now. Rosebud. Is that an old joke?
No.
It's a short joke.
Yes, you're so sweet and innocent.
But it's very clever to make that analogy.
Hi, look what you did. Oh. Look what you did. Let's leap immediately, taking this opportunity from talking about buggery straight into my multiple choice fact, right? My multiple choice fact is this: there are numerous stories about sexual imagery hidden in the Disney animated movies.
Oh, golly.
Right? People obviously love the idea of pervy animators, kind of putting these things in kids' movies. One of the following four is actually true.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. 1. In The Lion King, the letters S-E-X can be seen blown across the sky in a swirling cloud of dust. 2. Aladdin whispers the line, "Good teenagers, take off your clothes," during the balcony scene in Aladdin. 3. In a scene from 1977's The Rescuers, a topless woman, clearly from pornography, can be seen standing in the window as the characters Bernard and Miss Bianca fly by on the back of Orville the albatross. And 4, the poster artwork for The Little Mermaid includes a tower and a castle that clearly looks like a penis. One of those is true.
I have no idea, and it's such a fun fact. I love Little Mermaid a lot.
Is it because of the penis on the
I
poster?
think so.
Yeah.
I did thoroughly enjoy The Rescuers. My ex-wife made me watch it, and then I really loved it. It's a beautiful movie.
Yeah.
Then okay, so
And then The Lion King.
The Lion King.
The letters SEX in the dust.
That rings a bell.
And Aladdin whispering the line, "Good teenagers, take off your clothes," during the balcony scene in Aladdin.
I'm inclined to go. The only one I'm not convinced is definitely not true is maybe the Aladdin one, but I think the sex one might be true. The penis Little Mermaid one might be true. And
At the end of the day, only one of them is true.
Little Rescuers. Yeah, I know that part. Oh, cute. Where she flies on an albatross. All right. Time to make a decision. I think I'll go with The Lion King sex in the dust. I'll go with that. I will.
All right, let me take it from the top. So, the rumor for The Little Mermaid emerged that an angry Disney employee, aware that he was about to be let go, put the penis on the Little Mermaid's tower.
Don't you love them disgruntled employees?
There are versions of the poster online now that do include a penis tower.
Okay.
They're not the original.
Okay.
The original tower, I mean, it's a tower with a dome on the top. You could say it's a penis tower, but it really, you'd have to be particularly filthy minded to see it. It's just not true. The artist said he was in a bit of a hurry when he drew it. He didn't really think about it. He drew a dome on top of a thing. He wasn't.
Quick, draw something.
You have to be. I mean, I'm fairly rank as a human being, and I couldn't see it. I'll be honest. I didn't think it was a thing. Aladdin, the scene where he whispers, "Good teenagers, take off your clothes," during the balcony scene. The director's commentary explains the line he's actually saying is, "Good tiger, take off, scat, go." Okay. So it sounds like good teenagers take off your clothes to filthy Christians who like to imagine these things in their movies. In The Lion King, you definitely can see letters blown in the sky in the swirling dust. Problem is that they are SFX and the animators blowing their own trumpets.
Is it The Rescuers?
Yeah, so it's The Rescuers.
Where there's a porno.
That's right. There's an actual in 1999, Disney was forced to furiously recall 3.4 million copies of the DVD the VHS. After discovery of the controversial image hidden in the background of the scene. So the shot is they fly past this building and in the windows, and there's clearly a woman that's been cut from pornography with her tits fully out on display in the background. It appears for only 2 frames. So at the time, whoever put it in there was like, it's never going to be seen because the technology would never let you see it, so it was only with the advent of VHS when you could start pausing stuff and slow motioning it that you could actually see this particular image. Whoever put it in never, ever, ever thought that they would take it out.
I wonder if they ever found out who put it in.
So there's various rumors. There's rumors that Disney actually knew it was in there and didn't give a fuck until the moment. They knew it was in there, then they forgot it was in there, released the VHS, and then went like, shit, we released this thing. Then there's a claim that it wasn't the animators. It was somebody in post-production who just glued the little thing over an empty window and thought it was hilarious. But yeah, it was actually there. They've taken it out now, obviously, for any subsequent versions. But that one is 100% true.
Shame that to rescue
the
3,000.
3.4 million. 3.4 million.
That's terrible. Oh my
Yeah.
word!
But as you say, good movie. If people haven't seen it, they must go watch it.
That's
A
lovely.
lot of those late 70s, early 80s Disney movies don't get a lot of credit. You know, it's The Rescuers, it's Fox and the Hound.
Oh wow.
I personally am a big fan of The Black Cauldron, though people say it's Disney's worst movie.
Okay.
I really loved it. It was one of my favorites as a child. But that's all that kind of late 70s, early 80s. There's a lot of good films in there that people
Lovely.
haven't heard of and should go and see.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
I've got a few animated ones in my multiple choice. In doing this podcast, it occurred to me what an incredible decade the 30s were as well for movies.
And also
Incredible.
war.
Oh,
You know,
incredible
big
for
finish,
war.
big finish on the 30s. They love, you know, really like if you were going to end the 30s on a war, a world war is the way to do it, you know?
So my multiple choice is which of these movies is not in the 30s? Was not made in the 30s. We got ourselves The Wizard of Oz, Snow White and the Seven Dwarves, Pinocchio, and Gone with the Wind.
So Gone with the Wind definitely is later.
In the 30s. Okay. So we are, which of these is not, only one of them is not in the 30s. The Wizard of Oz,
I'm pretty sure it's Gone with the Wind.
Pinocchio, Snow White and the Seven Dwarves.
Oh, this is
and
so
Gone
good.
with the Wind.
So Snow White is the first. I mean, it's not the first animated Disney movie because the way that the film registration board recognizes it is a movie is anything over 40 minutes, and there is a compilation of Disney short films that was released before Snow White that's 41 minutes long and is officially their first animated movie. So, well, a lot of people still think it's Snow White. So Snow White was their first one. I think Pinocchio was the second one.
I mean, hi
Maybe.
ho, it's off to work we go. That was Snow White, hey?
Yes,
and
that's
then If You Wish Upon a Star,
that was Pinocchio, yeah.
Pinocchio.
So yeah, them I could believe were the 30s. I'm going to tell you a story about my grandfather, on my dad's side.
Yeah.
My grandfather, my grandmother, they were together when they went to go and see Gone with the Wind, and they had to go and see
Oh.
Gone with the Wind 7 times because my grandmother loved it so much, and
Wow.
my grandfather fell asleep in it 7
Oh,
times.
that's hysterical.
And you know,
It is very
like to me,
long.
that's a story of real romance.
Yeah.
Why would you go and watch a movie 7 times with a woman that you fell asleep in every single time
Ah.
unless you really liked her, right? Yeah, I think it's a sweet story.
I
but-
love that.
but they were born 1917 and 1919, I think. So if it was in the 30s, they would be 20 years old. Maybe they were dating in their 20s, but he definitely went off to war. And my feeling is that Gone with the Wind is significantly later. I would have said it was, if I was to guess, I'd say 1940s sometimes. Yeah, so it's Gone with the Wind. I'm going to say Gone
Your
with the Wind.
final answer, Gone with the Wind?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have exact dates. I'm not going to do a countdown for you. I'm just going to give it to you straight.
Okay.
You're wrong. It's Pinocchio. Gone with the Wind is in the 30s.
Hmm.
Yeah, they're all very late 30s. These Gone with the Wind in the 30s, Wizard of Oz in the 30s, and
Yeah, Wizard of Oz we knew because I discussed it in 1939, right?
Snow
Yeah.
White and the Seven Dwarfs, quite right, before Pinocchio. Pinocchio in the 40s. 41, maybe 40, 41, but right early in the 40s. So it's a bit of a tricky bastard question.
It's interesting
And
because
I
it
nailed
puts
you.
my grandparents dating in their early like 18, 19 years old, and then going on and living their lives together basically forever. Fuck them. Fuck them and their happy relationship for 50 odd years. You know, like honestly.
Oh, so lovely. So lovely.
Yeah, really nice.
That was a lovely show. Now we've come to the end of it. And I've got to go and watch Ben-Hur. So
You do. And I've got to go and watch Rosebud, but not the movie. I've just go and watch
I'm gonna grab
Pornhub.
a few beers
Yeah.
and sit and watch Ben-Hur because it's a long
It
movie.
is a long movie.
I might have to download it off a sort of a dodgy Russian.
No, I think you can get it basically for free somewhere on the internet. No
good.
doubt.
Don't have to go to
Yeah, it may be out
Russian
of it may
bot.
even be out of its copyright thing. It may not even be illegal to download.
Oh, that's
Anyway,
good.
thank you very much for watching this instead of watching
Yes.
Ben-Hur, because you could have done that. You could have watched Ben-Hur instead of watching this podcast. So like, subscribe, share, please. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you and join us next time. Thanks for being with us. Ciao.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.